I saw this video the other day and I wanted to check it out. He comes out with tier lists for WoW, but he does it the right way. He does it for fun because tier lists in WoW for the most people should be based on fun. In my opinion, I don't think unless you're pushing like world first, not really world like top 50, top 100 rating, or like really high-end Mythic Plus or PvP, then you should just only care about what you have fun with. Because there is a chart, and this is what I'm talking about. This right here. This is the top 5% of players, and this is what the damage looks like. So the game is pretty well balanced, and I tell people this, and they'll be like, "Oh, Fire Mage is broken," or this because they see like a Fire Mage pop off. Do you ever consider like that they're just like a good player, that they're like pressing their buttons in the right order and they have good gear, you know? And so like if you ever watch like the world race first, you'll see this. You'll see, or like a really good guild, you'll see like everyone is like within like 5% of each other, even closer than that. So play what you want,
Well, hello
guys.
there. Do
Play
you
what you
like to
think
play
is fun.
melee DPS? Because I do, and I've played all of the melees in 11.1
I
on
hate
the
playing melee.
PTR to
I don't
test them
play.
out,
I
to see
tried
how
melee.
fun they are with
Not
the
for
tier
me.
sets, with some of the talent reworks, and to tell you exactly which one ranks the highest and which one the lowest. And we're gonna start with arms, which could be the lowest, but maybe not as much. Okay, I know people like to play arms, and it's fine in terms of gameplay. I just always feel when I play arms that something's missing. It's not really the arms that I always fell in love with. I
I've
don't
never played. Actually, I tried to play Tank Warrior, and it was fun. It's actually a lot of fun leveling, like doing dungeons. But then I got to like raid, and then I did a raid, and then I realized how boring tanking is, at least in raid. And Mythic Plus is just stressful because you need to know all the routes. But I've never played like a DPS
don't really
warrior
like this new
before.
arms direction, and if people like it, I guess that's okay. It's just a little bit disappointing to me because it's been one of the specs that I've been enjoying for, I don't know, 20 years of
I
World
think
of Warcraft,
Fury was
but
always
I
cooler
digress.
anyway.
I've played mostly
You got the
Colossus,
dual
and to be
wield
fair, Demolish
two-handers. Come
is
on.
kind of cranking right now, and it is very satisfying to see that last hit just fucking delete mobs. And spamming cleaves for big damage is pretty fun as well, although I just don't get the sweeping strikes focus, and I don't really see Avatar being an interesting cooldown anymore, and it's been a staple of Warrior for a very long time. I will put
I think
arms
Brat
in
has
Need Some Love. I would have put it into No Way,
Avatar.
but I'm coming around to it a little bit. It's not that bad, and I know
Oof, so Arms gets a, what is this, Giga Fun? Decently fun? Okay, could play it. Needs some love. No way.
a lot of people
Alright,
still
so Arms where
enjoy
it needs
it.
some love, I
Having
guess.
fun is very important, especially when you want to learn back-end web development
Oh,
with today's
snap.
sponsor, Boot. I'm just saying. But Boots can help you with answers.
Dip.
It's
Alright, so
not assassination
Assassination.
for me, I gotta be honest. It's not a bad spec, and I am a fan of Rogue, of course, but something about Rogue, kind of like
I tried Rogue in last expansion, Dragonflight, and there are so many buttons. I think I played Sub, because I only leveled. So many classes I played that I just leveled and I stopped playing, but Sub Rogue, it's fun. It's just very high, like, it's just a lot going on. A lot, but if you like that playstyle, really fast paced, Rogue is really
Warrior as
fun.
well, hasn't really pulled me as a fan in the war
And
within.
all this, by the way, is going to be subjective, obviously.
Probably the lack of changes. Now, I'm not oblivious to Assassination being one of the best melee DPS specs in the game, and I'm actually really happy that it's been doing so well in this patch, and I'm only hoping that it continues doing so as well, because it has certain aspects of its playstyle. I'm gonna put it kind of like in the middle there, that I would love to see
Okay.
in specs like Feral, and we'll get to Feral as well, where you can actually choose to do big AoE bursts or funnel
I like
damage
those
into one target
clouds.
with caustic spatter, which I think work really well in giving Assassination options and fun in AoE. AoE especially since I mostly do Mythic Plus on my
Jesus,
ults.
this guy, is this all Rogue dots or like debuffs? Or is this everybody? If it's Rogue, that's a lot.
But raids are also really great as well. Now, until that changes, I will stay a little bit on the fence with Rogue, and I'm still kind of missing playing it a little bit, so I'll probably play it a little bit, but maybe not as much as other specs on the list.
I feel like Rogue is always good. At least one spec is always good. At least in single target. The most of the time. I've never like. There's ever been like an expansion where Rogue is just bad. which is a good thing.
Outlaw is in a similar situation. I kind of really miss pirating around, and to be fair with the Plunderstorm, I'm kind of itching a little bit
I
to be
think
a
Outlaw
pirate
has the coolest
ER.
like
And Hidden
aesthetic going
Opportunity
for it
still
with the
being
gun,
a
right?
semi-decent valid playstyle
Never
is
played
fun,
it
at
though.
least in Season 1. But in Season 2, it kind of drops off a little bit, I believe. I mean, that's how the tier set would indicate, since the tier set really buffs dispatch, and you would really want between the eyes to be buffed a little bit more, so that crack shot builds can just be good whether you play Hidden Opportunity or Keep It Rolling, since Keep It Rolling kind of wants dispatch damage a little bit more. So it feels like the tier set will probably push you into Keep It Rolling a little bit more, which I'm not opposed to. It's a fun build. I just like ambushes way more. I don't know, I'm a simple guy. I'm simple needs. Survival.
Oh no. I don't. I wish they would just revert the change, man. Like I'm a Hunter player, and ever since they made Hunter melee, it's just I think I played it like once. It's never been. It's actually not bad now, which is good, right? It's always been a meme spec until like I think the last expansion or two. It's pretty good in Mythic Plus. I think it's actually sometimes the best Hunter spec in Mythic Plus, but in rating it's just not good, and it's just like I don't know. I would much rather have the old Survival Hunter. Like, they could do so much with survival range. I don't know why they kind of made that change. It was stupid.
Is it an interesting position in 11.1 because Pack Leader has been fully reworked. Survival has been a fun spec across the board for me to play. It's a main contender at this point, and it feels like it needs a little bit more tweaks. It had a
Okay.
couple of talent changes where
I
now
haven't played in a
Flanking
long
Strike is a
time.
choice now with Butchery, and we have two new talents that
When I played, it was okay. I don't know. It felt okay. I don't know. Just like I just miss old Survival Hunter, like old Cataclysm. Survival Hunter, and I think Mr. Pandaria too. It was just so fun. It was so fun. It was simple, but it was so fun.
buff single target and kill shots, bleed dots, boss damage,
Explosive shots, your black
execute damage as well, which
arrows,
is great in theory,
crazy
but it still
AoE.
feels like Survival plays more or less the same. And most of all, it feels like with Pack Leader, you're kind of overcapping on Wildfire Bomb charges. And this is kind of like the bane of Survival. No matter what rework it goes through, it always feels like you just have way too much stuff.
Yeah, they don't know what to do with this spec. I feel like I feel like they've like reworked it like 3 times
And it's
now.
never really clear what you're supposed to be doing or what you're supposed to be spending your
Same
global
thing with Mythic Plus, by the way. They've like reworked it like 5 times now, and they still don't know what they're
on,
doing.
and that's not really intuitive, and it kind of takes a little bit away from the potential of
Blizzard.
Survival. They have addressed this before in the beta for the War Within, so I'm hoping that they address it again in the next patch. So I'm just going to put Survival in decently fun. It's really fun.
Okay.
Obviously, it's a main contender, but I feel like it's just
I might
not
try it. I'm
Giga fun.
actually so I made Warlock last season, and now I'm gonna play Hunter. I think I'm actually gearing it up now. Been doing like a raids and stuff because I want to play the new marksmanship, and I think even BM got changed a lot too. So I'm excited. The tier sets for Hunter look amazing this patch.
Yet. And GigaFun is Enhancement on the other hand, because
Oh,
Enhancement is cooking next
dude,
patch.
Enhancement has
A
been
little bit controversial. I am
crazy
actually a
good
fan of the Primordial Wave change and the fact
in
that you
terms of
can
power. I've never
recast
played
it
it,
for more
but
consumers and fat
been so
finishers.
strong.
I do understand that it's taken away the Tempest Cleave, if I'm not mistaken, and that's definitely a game interaction that was really fun to play with, which means that this might push Totemic a little bit more, and I'm not necessarily a fan
Earthquake.
of
That's a good name.
not having diversity in my builds, whether it is through hero talents or the actual talents themselves. I do have to say that I've actually enjoyed Totemic really much on the PTR. I've played with the new talent that
I should reroll
gives Sundering
Shaman.
a 40% chance to reset its own cooldown.
Nah.
Spamming back-to-back Sundering has been really cool, I'm not gonna lie. And having a different approach to your economy of your resources with Totemic feels way better. So with Stormbringer, you kind of not reset your Maelstrom weapons when you use
Yeah,
your
one of my buddies who
finishers,
plays Warrior
and
played
that's
Shaman,
cool because you
like
get to
Enhancement
use a
Shaman, and
finisher again.
he liked it a
But
lot.
the way your normal rotation works is you use a, let's say, a Chain Lightning, and then you immediately queue up a Storm Strike to, to kind of keep the flow of the rotation going. and it might be a little bit too late for you to
I
notice
think
that
it's a
your
pretty hard
Maelstrom
spec,
weapon
though.
hasn't been spent, so you end up over-generating Maelstrom weapons that go to waste. With Totemic, however, or at least on the PTR, I don't know if this applies to Stormbringer as well, I play mostly Totemic, the Maelstrom weapon generates progressively over your rotation, so it's not just like fully 10 off the bat, so you have time to react to it and spend it more efficiently. At least that feels really well when you see it happen. And speaking of Feral, well, I spoke about Feral about 4 specs ago. It's missing a little bit some of that assassination damage profile where you used to
Feral
have terrible
Druid.
wounds. I think I mention this every time I talk about Feral.
I
It
don't.
feels a little
I
bit
feel
boring
like
to still mention it again, but I
there's
do have to
such
say
an
that the lack
unpopular spec.
of
I like never see it.
agency over different types of damage profiles in AoE.
I think I played Feral and Firelands and Cataclysm, and it only played Feral because they had the staff from Major Domo that turned you into like the Fire Cat transmog. And that was the first time that ever happened, and I was like, I want that. So I switched to Feral Druid, and then I played it for like a week, and then I was like, I miss my Hunter, and then I just re-rolled back to Hunter.
Feels a little bit lackluster. With that out of the way,
But Feral's
Feral
fun.
is one of the most funs I've had in the PTR because baseline Feral
I,
just
I
plays
liked
really
Feral
well. There's
playstyle.
no really big changes going to the next
It was
patch.
pretty hard
Some quality of life
compared to
changes to
Hunter,
the
but
class talents in the tree, which is great. Gives me a little bit more options to maybe get an Innervate. That's nice.
that
But Feral still
was like
plays
a
the
decade
same, and
ago,
it
so it
plays
might
really
have.
good. It's really
Honestly,
fun.
I remember that you got your dash, you got your shouts, bleeds. It looks pretty similar.
Baseline. The tier set definitely feels like it makes me want to play more Apex Predator, which is my favorite way of playing Feral, and that's great. But to be fair, and I'm guilty, I'm gonna admit it, the thing that I enjoyed the most about Feral was the fact that I was actually doing a lot of damage. And whenever you're playing a very fluid cursive spec that kind of feels like it's doing everything right and has these big moments, but you're not really doing a lot of damage with them, it feels empty. It feels like you're drinking a flavorless soda or something.
Yeah,
It's
I
terrible.
know what you
I'm
mean.
not saying that it doesn't do damage on life. Obviously it does damage, but it's not the same. On PTR, it's maybe one of the best DPSers in the game that I have personally tested, and that says quite a bit. And I'm hoping
There's
that
nothing
Feral
like hitting like a huge cooldown, and then it like does like nothing. That just feels bad.
gets to that point because we've had a red meta, we've had an enhanced meta, and from all of the bucket of these are the worst melee specs in the game, I think Feral needs a shot at the spotlight at one point as well.
Yeah, I really hope that they do mix things up. I don't like when from like patch to patch, it's just like things are the same. That's why I think League, at least for League of Legends, like they have a new patch like every 2 weeks, and it just keeps things fresh. Although things might not change a little bit over like a month or two, things probably do change, and the meta does shift a lot. And I think they need to do that for a while, and I think that's maybe why they nerfed the Aug Evoker is because people just got tired of seeing the same stuff. Because people do play meta, either if they want to or if they're not. People just like really prefer even like lower end key levels. It's really hard to get a spot as a DPS if you're not playing. What was it like Frost DK Element, Enhancement Shaman, Ret Paladin, and it sucks because like to do lower end keys you don't need that, but people think they do because they see it on MDI or something. Although I do have to say that sometimes there are outliers and you kind of do need that. Like if you're pushing not even like high keys, but like higher end keys, like I'll take this was back when the expansion launched. I'll take a Resto Shaman and I'll wait for a Resto Shaman and I'll take no other healer spec. So there definitely are those cases, which is really not good for the game at all. But I do think they should mix it up. I'm happy that Feral seems to be one of the stronger specs because it's just Red Paladin, Enhancement Shaman. It just gets boring, gets kind of stale.
I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's necessarily meta worthy, but it is doing a lot of damage as of this video. Frost DK is maybe one of the exceptions of the melee specs when it comes to its tier set, because the tier set is kind of bland, boring, and annoying for a lot of the melee specs.
Okay.
Maybe you could say the same
Interesting.
about Frost Death Knight, but it actually pushes some interesting playstyles. First of all, the tier set has also been reworked. I don't know if you've kept up with the news, where
Dude,
now
Frost
your
Death Knights are so
Forset has
badass.
chances to proc Frost Sights. I think
Their
maybe your tier set
abilities,
also
their
procs Frost
animations.
Sights. It doesn't really matter because what's important for the tier set is that it doesn't make you play Frost Sight. You don't need to play that. It's also a very boring and bland ability. They need to fucking buff that sometime this millennium. But what is interesting about Frost tier set is that it buffs Glacial Advance and Frost Strike only consistently through the 2-piece, which means that in order to take advantage of the tier set, you would need to use these abilities as your main consumers, which means that you probably don't want to use your Breath of Sindragosa, since during Breath, your tier set kind of doesn't really exist.
Dude, this dungeon on Mythic Plus is gonna be awful, I feel like, with the cart and the candle. This is gonna be a
First of all, that's
terrible,
terrible design.
key to do.
But it does push a lot more builds out for you to test out, especially since a lot of Frost Death Knights kind of really hate Breath. And to be fair, as good as it is right now in Mythic Plus, Breath is one of the main reasons why it's good, but it's also one of the most annoying spells to play around because you're actually a diva. Being a diva is not nice, your party's not going to cater to you, your tank is not going to pull around your Breath, so having other options is great because with this tier set, you might even be able to play Two-Handed Rider of the Apocalypse.
Oh.
Fancy that. That's like out of left field.
Two-handed
Obviously, you're going to be
Frost.
playing Shattered Frost. Maybe you'll play Lonely Winter. Who knows? Who knows? The sky's the limit, and we can test all of them out. And the tier set definitely enables that, which probably signifies a deeper problem with Frost Death Knight, where it's just it needs a proper rework, not just talent shifted around.
I don't,
It needs maybe a
I don't know these mechanics on this boss at all because it's so weird because you level up, you do the dungeons, like you don't know any mechanics because they just follow her. But now I actually have to learn it because it's a Mythic Plus.
new spell or 2 new spells, different ways to engage with the capstones because they're all just very passive and very bland. But the potential of having a lot more builds to play with is really enticing, so I will put
decently
Frost
fun.
DK in decently fun. Fury Warrior has been the saving grace of Warrior for me in the War Within, and that still doesn't say much because it's my least favorite warrior spec. It still plays like a warrior, and it's kind of like on its last leg. It feels like Fury Warrior is one rework away from just being dog shit like the other 2 warrior specs in terms of fantasy gameplay and playstyle. It is good. I feel like it doesn't really change much.
I thought people liked Fury Warrior.
Reckless Abandon, from what I understand.
I know it was really strong at the start of the expansion, and they nerfed it a lot.
Anger management.
But this is for fun.
Those will probably be fixed by the time the patch launches.
But I thought people liked the playstyle.
A relevant point to make, but it's the same. It's the same Fury Warrior. I feel like one of the biggest sins that Fury Warrior also received was that I think Titan's Torment capstone of Avatar doesn't give you Odin's Fury anymore. I like that. I liked Avatar proccing some of your bigger abilities. They're taking that away completely from Warrior, and every time they do that, they make it less fun for me. And despite that, it's still average. But it's looking like in the near future, Warrior is a dead class to me.
Jeez.
I don't know about you.
That's a surprise, honestly. I thought Warrior was
note side, whatever. Havoc has been really interesting and going old.
I tried. Okay, so for Dragonflight, I was like, I'm not gonna play Hunter, so I rolled Demon Hunter, and I think it's so cool that the class is like identity and the I-beam, and like that feels so good to press. It feels really fun to play, but back then I'm not sure how it is now. It was the play style and the rotation was just very unforgiving. There were like abilities where like if you have to go and do your opener, and if you misclick like one ability, all your damage is gone because it gave you like these buffs. Like you do like this backward jump flip somersault shit, and you get like a buff that increases your damage, but it was only for like 2 to 3 seconds. So you had to like hit every GCD like perfectly. You had like only a little bit of a window of error, and it just felt really kind of. It was just hard, honestly. It was very hard, and it's easy to do it on like a target dummy, but doing that on like a mythic boss fight or something, it was just very unforgiving, and it felt bad if you didn't get it, if you missed it, because that was all your damage. So that's why I stopped playing. I only played it for a few weeks, but other than that, the Demon Hunter was like all the abilities, and like I said, the I-beam is so sick.
The way in front of survival.
The demon form you get.
Now, this has never happened ever, and it didn't really receive very big changes. A couple of talents have been changed.
Okay,
now,
so
you
he has
don't have
decently
the
fun.
necessary talent that turns, I think, all of your damage into chaos damage. And Cycle of Hatred has been changed as well. So Cycle of
Yeah, Demon
Hatred
Hunters are
now
sick.
makes it so that when you use your eye beam,
But Demon Hunter players, Demon Hunter mains are they're like the ADC mains of League. They're just crazy. They're crazy and they're toxic.
it reduces the overall cooldown of eye
And they're
beam by,
just
I think, 5
say the
seconds.
wildest stuff.
Until from 40-second cooldown, it goes down to 20-second cooldown. If you die, you lose this buff. This has been bugged on PTR and it hasn't really been working. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But bringing eye beam to a 20-second cooldown can open up some really interesting playstyles, especially with inertia, which I really like, because that's when Vengeful Retreat, I think Vengeful Retreat has a 20-second cooldown as well, so they would match up really well, and you can have these inertia big moments of big eye beam burst damage. That's really fun. And if you don't like that, you can play Exergy, which takes away the momentum playstyle altogether. And if you don't like that, you cannot play any of them and just play totally different talents, going maybe into more Immolation Aura playstyles as well. And you can
looks like
also
you have more
go
options.
to Eldrachi, which has been very surprisingly the most fun I've had with Havoc, because it gives you options when dealing with AoE. You can do the dance of Chaos Striking first and then Blade Dancing for big Blade Dance and AoE. And if you're on a boss, obviously you do it the other way around to activate the, I think it's Thrill of the Hunt or whatever it's called. Blade Dance first and then Chaos Strike for big single target damage. Throwing the Reaver's Glaive around feels really nice. Having the Reaver's Glaive activate with the Hunt is really cool. Using the Hunt and Vengeful Retreat to activate Inertia is really cool.
Such a cool ability.
Think you play Essence
That's why
Break.
I really wish, like, there's so many cool classes that like have stuff like that, like Eye Beam. Warlock has Chaos Bolt, you know. Those are just two examples. Like mages like Pyroblast, like just big hitting abilities with like huge animations that pack a lot of punch behind them. And I think that Hunter does not have that. So that's one reason why I kind of switched from Hunter. But I'm excited to go back to it. But it's just like it doesn't have much weight behind it, if that makes sense, with its abilities. It really doesn't. And it'd be cool if they added just some like animation or make the aim shot just like huge, or kill shot. I think kill shot would be the best ability to add something like that too, because it is like your strongest like hitting ability most of the time. But for the marksmanship and even beast mastery, and I don't know about survival, but Hunter definitely lacks that.
Eldrachi, which would make it a crazy 500 IQ playstyle. And to be fair, Essence Break is probably one of the most difficult melee playstyles in the game currently, by the way. So
Demon Hunter is
no
hard.
Meme, but it's been really fun, and it is, I think, a main contender for me at this point, and it hasn't been this way since Legion. Red Paladin has kind of dipped for me a little bit. I don't know exactly where to put it because it hasn't really received any changes, and the more it goes without any actual real changes...
So I feel like Red Paladin is really strong, at least the last time I was playing a WoW. Like, you know, the whole patch war within, it was pretty strong, you know? And my friend would get upset because he was playing Enhancement Shaman, which I think is like a lot harder. And then he's like, oh, he's Red Paladin, shows up my party, and he's like no gear, and he's like doing more damage than me, and he's pressing like 3 buttons. And it's true. The Red Paladin is very simple, but it's not. That's fine. There should be specs like that, but it's just really strong, and I think that's fine too. I don't want to play a spec that's like too easy, you know. I like to have a decent amount of abilities. I don't want to play something that's way too hard either, though. I like something that kind of like in the middle.
Farther behind it,
and Warlock has been great with that.
You have enhancement, you have survival, you have Havoc actually getting melee talent upgrades that can elevate the playstyle to the next level, while Red just kind of still stays the same. And maybe out of spite, I will put it into the okay, could play it, maybe in front of Rogue. No, I'll leave it there. It deserves there because no real changes, and the talents are very cookie cutter. I really don't want to play Executions in AoE anymore. That has to go away. And maybe the biggest disappointment for me, especially for Red, is that Divine Hammer is very lackluster. I've been waiting for Divine Hammer to be addressed because it's been sitting there, dead talent, everybody ignoring it, the devs hoping that we would forget that it actually exists, which is a terrible game design, by the way. It's a talent, let me pick it. And now that they've kind of changed it so that it doesn't consume your, I think it was Holy Power, similar to Breath of Sindragosa, it can be maintained by spending Holy Power, I believe. That's how it works. but the damage is very pitiful. It looks amazing, man. It looks like,
Yeah, I
oh
was
my
gonna
god,
say,
like the old school spinny hammer things.
you got the wings,
It
you got the
reminds me of
hammers. It looks pretty
Diablo
sick.
2
Yeah.
and even Diablo 3, and I wish it would do more damage. I wish they would make this as a capstone to make it like a part of Red Fantasy, but it's very mediocre, and that's so disappointing because it could be so much better. Then the blandness of Red kind of gets older and older the longer we go without any actual real changes. A lot of people like it. It's the most popular spec in the game, period, so I cannot
Yeah.
really fault it too much.
I think Red's in a fine spot. I don't know. I think that people have liked it a lot since it got reworked. Or in Dragonflight, a few like a year or two ago, it got reworked, and people have been very positive about it since. I think it's. I don't know. I never played it, but it's very popular, so they must be doing something right.
Subtlety is maybe the best rogue spec at the moment in terms of interacting with its tier set. I feel like it's the least impacted by the pitiful RNG where you just kind of constantly lose your 2-set bonus again and again and again and again and again, which is weird and unfun. But with Shadow Dance proccing your winning streak at max stacks, I believe.
This is the spec I played on Rogue. It was hard, but it was
Shadow
fun.
Dance is really helpful. It feels like you're buffing your damage windows even more, and Marcel has been playing more Rogue than I have, and it does quite a lot of damage. It's been really, really cool. I am hoping for a little bit more love on Subtlety's side. I am still missing a little bit the old Shadow Dust
Honestly,
playstyle.
this tier list so far is very surprising. I did not expect... One, I didn't expect Survival to be up here, personally. These definitely Enhancement and Frosty K. I was expecting Fury Warrior to be way up here, and Paladin to be like up here at least. This is surprising so far.
My favorite version of
This is why I like to watch this, because a lot is changing into this new patch, right? This new tier sets change your specs up a lot, it seems like. So, and now it's the best time to change mains. This is why I'm changing mains to Hunter.
It's not that bad.
I'm curious to see what he says about Hunter
we'll
and the range.
see how the tuning goes, because I feel like it needs a little bit of tuning. Unholy is kind of losing a little bit in the 11.1 in terms of tier sets. The tier set essentially affects your Epidemic and Death Coil the most, where you're going to be buffing those, and those same spells will take away those buffs, which is the Winning Streak. Now, Winning Streak gets activated, and you cannot actually
dispel
your own Winning Streak during Dark Transformation. It's a little bit boring. It kind of makes no impact whatsoever on your gameplay rotation, with maybe the exception of some talents. Now, there's a good side to Unholy as well. Kind of like a bittersweet side, let's say. You'll most likely be pushed into Sand Lane. I don't think a lot of people are happy about that, because Rider of the Apocalypse is such a big winner when it comes to the mobility and the fluidness and just the flow of the spec in general. Sand Lane is rotationally maybe a little bit more interesting, because Vampiric Strike is a big hitting ability. The thing is, you're not gonna wanna focus a lot on Vampiric Strike, because your Death Coil will be buffed by Sand Lane by quite a lot. And add this to the tier set and your Sudden Doom talents and all of those Death Coil talents on your tree, you'll end up doing a lot of damage with Death Coil, which takes away some of the agency that Sand Lane is supposed to give you on that Vampiric Strike, on that Scourge Strike playstyle. So it's a little bit weird. Plus side is that Death Coil ends up, for me at the moment, when I've tested on the PTR, it ended up doing almost 8 times more damage than Epidemic, which means obviously Epidemic is AoE, but that means that Epidemic would have to hit about 8 targets or more to be able to out DPS Death Coil. It's a little bit counterintuitive and a little bit sucky, but as long as it's just the season, that's fine, because what this actually enables is priority damage for Unholy in Mythic Plus, which is a big thing and one of the reasons why a lot of
isn't that like that seems really bad though, because like Unholy, I mean, has always been really strong in AoE because of all your dots and stuff. So like spreading all your diseases and your dots, and then instead you just Death Coil one target and you do more damage. Is that what I'm hearing? Like that sounds bad.
Taken into Mythic Plus into high keys is because of their priority damage.
Like imagine you run a huge pack and you're playing Marksmanship Hunter, and instead of using your explosive shot, your volley, and all your multi-shot, you just aim shot the same target, an arcane shot, because it does more damage. Like what?
Funnel damage and shove it into one target, and it seems like that's what's going to happen with the current version of Unholy if Death Coil remains to be this strong. Of course, this will also mean
maybe Death Coil AoEs a little bit
in raids,
I don't know,
and that's always great, because Unholy always feels like it's kind of falling off by the end of the season. So we'll see how it evolves by the sheer fact that you might have damage profile variety.
Okay, I want to predict this last one. So Demon Hunter or Death Knights are up here. That's good. Death Knights are always fun, I feel like. Um, I was very much considering re-rolling to Windwalker Monk instead of Hunter because everyone says it's like that and Fire Mage are the two top specs to play in terms of fun. Icy Bands came up with the chart at the start of the expansion, like saying here's like a tier list of strength, utility, and they had like ratings for everything. And Windwalker Monk and Fire Mage were at the top. They were both a 5 out of 5 in terms of fun. So, and Max from Liquid just like always talks about how fun what Monk is, and I'm like, do I play Monk? But I don't know. I don't like melee, and I do like playing multiple specs, and I don't want to play healer or tank. So that was kind of a no. Two strikes, and then but it's the class identity. It's just like you're on this giant epic raid boss, and everyone's just like, I got a hunter. I'm shooting it with air, like, these shots or guns. You know, you got a warrior with an axe, and mages with fireballs, and then you have a monk, and just like, and he's kicking it, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Just the class identity does not. I'm not into Panda Land. I wasn't into that expansion, or the pandas, and I just like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's
I
not
will
my
put
like,
Unholy into
I
decently
class
fun,
identity
but
just
being
doesn't
forced
do
into
much
one
for me.
particular playstyle with no variation might actually see it being bumped down a tier,
I'm
but we
curious
don't
what
know
he has
that
to
yet.
say.
We'll have to keep our eyes
I think
open.
it's gonna be
Now,
high.
Windwalker
Oh yeah,
is
yeah.
all the way up there because, dude, this spec is cooking in the next patch. I've been having a lot of fun. First of all, finally upgrades the animation, especially with the Shadow Pan Flurry
Oh,
Strikes. Dude, this sounds and looks so good. I've been really
so I
surprised
play
when I saw
Monk.
them the first time. Really sweet. Considering that the Monk hero talents are very, very passive, at least make them, crank, or at least crank visually, and that's really cool. And another thing that is very exciting for Windwalker is that now you have a new capstone, or I guess maybe you've had it for a while. I
Honestly, it
missed it when
looks like
they've
the
added
animations are
this,
pretty
and that
clean,
is
but I just like, I
Slicing
don't know.
Winds, the old Plunderstorm ability, which is still in Plunderstorm
Maybe I'll try
as of
Monk
this
out.
video. And it's kind of what I was hoping Plunderstorm would do to spec, is just introduce new abilities and new combat interactions with spells for a lot of specs. And it works just as it does in Plunderstorm, where you charge it and you travel further. The damage is the same. It has been buffed recently because it was a little bit underwhelming. However, it still feels a little bit underwhelming because it doesn't really have any interactions with any other part of your kit. And this reminds me of the Whirling Dragon Punch, which has changed since then. So I'm hoping that this receives the same change, where Whirling Dragon Punch has some interactivity. It can proc Dance of GG, it can proc more Ancient Teachings. So I'm kind of hoping that Slicing Winds also has some
I
interactions
don't
with
want to
your
know
kit to feel
character,
like I'm
but
building
Monk.
towards something, because
Maybe.
it
Maybe
kind
we'll
of
make an
breaks
alt
me
Monk.
away
I
from
don't
the
know. We'll
flow
see.
of Windwalker, which is so nice. And dude, melees are just really fun, but it's looking like it's probably not gonna be a melee meta next year, and you're gonna struggle a little bit. And this is a
Really?
good time to check the marksmanship rework that we made a video about,
A.
because marksmanship rework is the best hunter rework, by the way.
Oh, okay. I'm excited. I'm excited. Yeah. So here's the tier list. The final shot. I think that I was surprised about Warrior, even Paladin, but looks like Rogue's kind of not great either, huh? But I'm excited for Hunter. I'm excited for the range set. I think that's gonna be very interesting where he places, especially Warlock, because it didn't get many changes. But I think Warlock's in a fine spot. But I'm really looking forward to Hunter. But yeah, no, this was a good video. I think it's nice to look at from the fun perspective. Like I said, play what you want to have fun with because you could do as much damage as most of the specs if you play properly.